Hello and welcome once again. So today we're going to be talking about public versus private school. Where should you enroll your kids? Why should you enroll your kids in a public school versus a private school, or a private school versus a public school? The reason I am making this video is because I've lost count of how many people have asked me for recommendations about whether it is better to enroll in public or to enroll in private. Okay, so I want to weigh in on that subject matter. Now, I am hoping that this would be, hopefully, the beginning of a series of other videos that touch on the aspect of relocation that has to do with your children's well-being, because I feel like this is another gray area when it comes to the experience of migrating to another country, especially if you're doing it with kids, okay, whether they are young kids or teenagers. Yeah, I feel like that is another aspect that is not talked about often enough, but one that I have seen people express certain fears and concerns. Just the way that the world is right now, and some of the issues that are on the table in relation to mental health, in relation to sexuality, in relation to genderism, all those things. Yes, some people have expressed their fears and concerns to me in private messages and also in questions. All right, so I am hoping that this will be the first of a series of videos that specifically address what happens with your children. Okay, so yes, we're starting off with something that is a little lighter in terms of school enrollments for kids and why some parents prefer to put their kids in a private school versus a public school. My name is Chioma. Welcome to my channel. Just in case this is the first time you are stopping by here, I am so happy to have you. I hope that you would do as my OGs on this channel do, which is to make yourself comfortable, maybe grab yourself a drink and buckle yourselves in, because this is going to be quite the ride. Okay, don't forget to give this video a thumbs up. At the very least, you can join the family by subscribing whenever you want to do so. So let's get into this discussion. I am going to start off with my own experience and then go on from there to just give you my 2 cents about what I think of this debate between public and private enrollments. My kids have attended both public and private school here in Australia, okay? And I am going to say this off the bat, that the reason they moved from the public system to the private system had nothing, absolutely nothing to do with the quality of education they were getting. It had nothing to do with academic performance. I'm just going to put that out there, because here in Australia, the school curriculum is quite strictly applied, which means that regardless of where your child ends up attending, they will be subject to the same curriculum and they will also be measured against the same standards. On that basis, there is no difference between the quality of education you would get from public schools versus private schools, okay? Now, I am not saying that every public school ranks the same in terms of academic performance. Of course, there are schools that will rank lower or higher than other schools, and this has to do with other factors. For instance, socio-economic background of a particular suburb or area where the school is located and the unique challenges that come with that socio-economic level. That would play a part in how a school performs overall in relation to other schools. So I want you to keep that in mind. But if we're speaking on a general level, things apply the same way for both public and private schools when it comes to the curriculum, when it comes to teaching and learning. When my children started school, they started in the public system. And that was because at that time, it was more easily accessible for us. Now, public school here in Australia is free for anyone who is a permanent resident or a citizen. It is free. You're not going to pay tuition fees. At the time that we enrolled my first child, when she became of school age, we were on a temporary visa. We were student visa holders, which means it wasn't free for us. And just in case you didn't know, public school is not free. If your child is not a permanent resident or a citizen, it is not free. So at that time, for us, public school was more accessible in the sense that even though we were paying fees for our child at that time, it was still the cheapest we could find, comparing it to private schools. And before we enrolled her in this particular school, we did check the ranking of schools within the area and the schools that we were in catchment for. And this particular school happened to have one of the highest rankings in the schools within that area, and it was close to home, so we put her in that school. And let me also say this quite honestly, if I am assessing my children's progression through primary school just on the basis of academic performance alone, that first public school my daughter attended is the best school she has ever attended in terms of academic performance. That's not to say that the school they attend currently does not rank well. It ranks very well, but it ranks like a couple of places lower than the public school she attended. I just wanted to make that clear. The reason we pulled her out of that school was simply because we moved out of the area. She finished kindy in that school and then started year one. She did one term of year one, and by that time her younger sister was also of school age, and so the both of them were enrolled at that time. They did just one term that year, and then we had to move out of the area. When we moved out of the area, we had two options basically. So we had one private school, a Catholic school. Unfortunately, we were not able to get into that school because even though we were within catchment, the wait list was very long. It seemed like every family in that area was targeting that school, and as a result, the wait list was impossible. We just couldn't get in. So we enrolled them in the public school that we were in catchment for, a top ranking public school. However, they did again only one term or maybe two terms in that school, and we had to pull them out again. This time around, the reason was because their out of school hours care facility was very limited in capacity. It was a struggle for us to maintain a good arrangement where one parent would be home every day to pick up the kids from school. It was a hassle. Dropping them off in the morning was not a problem, but picking them up in the afternoon was a problem because it was either their father was working or I was working or attending classes. So it wasn't very sustainable, and we had to make the decision to pull them out of the school. But in the short time that they were in that school, just for two terms, again, I did not see anything to fault about the academic aspect of the school. Okay, so I started off by telling you a bit of my own experience, just so that you understand that there are so many other reasons why parents would choose to put their kids in a private school versus a public school that have nothing to do with academic performance. In a moment, I would go into those reasons, but first of all, let me give you a basic overview of the public school system and the private school system so that some of the things I'm going to discuss later would make more sense. Public school, as you would already know, is funded by the government, and it operates on an enrollment by catchment basis. So public schools do not care basically what your political, religious, moral affiliations are. As long as you're within catchment, you can enroll in that school. Just as a result of that structure, there is a bigger population in public schools, and so class sizes might be bigger than what you would find in private schools. And as a result of the open door enrollment structure of public schools, it attracts people from all walks of life. In a public school, you would find a diverse range of students from different social, economic, cultural profiles. Everyone is accepted in a public school. Now let's move over to private schools. They are kind of the opposite of public schools. They are more exclusive, and that exclusivity might be based on religious lines or based on some other educational model. For instance, a secular school that runs on a Montessori kind of structure. Most private schools here are religious affiliated. It might be a Catholic school or a Protestant school. There is a particular profile that you have to be in alignment with to be accepted in certain private schools. And just on the basis of that, it means that not everyone can get in. If you do not demonstrate alignment with the core values of a school, then you may not be getting enrollment into that school. If you're not within the catchment area, you may not get into that school. Even though private schools may also have a catchment area enrollment policy of some sort, I feel like they're a bit more relaxed on that particular criterion. Of course, private schools are more expensive. You'll be paying tuition fees and all of the other incidental costs and levies. That already would be a basis for some parents choosing to put their kids in that school or not. And because there are such tighter requirements around enrollment, some students will be filtered out. There are some kids who will never be able to get into certain private schools. Having said all of that, let's go into some of those reasons why parents choose private over public. The first reason is status. Yeah. Some private schools have earned a reputation and prestige which parents want to be associated with. They want their kids to be associated with that prestige, and they want to also have some kind of connection to that reputation and that prestige. And that's, for some parents, is the only reason why their kids would attend certain schools. Now, for some parents, it might be because they themselves are alumni of the same school, and so there is that sentimental attachment to the school. I think another sub-level of that particular point is also connection, social connections. And some of these connections go beyond just the school walls. These are connections into powerful places in government. So yes, for some parents, it's about that. It's about status, it's about prestige. Now, some other parents would prefer for their kids to go to a private school than a public school on the basis of moral values. So moral values when it comes to things like dressing, when it comes to things like religion, because yes, there's always an aspect of religion that is associated with morals. So some parents want their kids to go to a particular school because of the faith that they are affiliated with. A Catholic parent would want their kids to go to a Catholic school. Same for a Protestant parent wanting their kids to go to a school that runs on a curriculum that also accommodates the nurturing of that faith or the nurturing of certain values. And I think of all the reasons, especially my grandparents coming from the same background as myself, I feel like this is the major reason why they put their kids in private schools. Okay, that's moral upbringing and the moral nurturing. And I believe this reason is premised on the impression that the public school system is a come one, come all kind of place where there are no filters to restrict who comes in and what they bring into the community. Okay, so you would find a range of different characters and behaviors and moral values and dispositions in a public school, and some parents are concerned about that. They don't want their kids to be exposed to other kind of values that they think might corrupt their children. Okay, and that is the reason why they would prefer their kids to go to a private school. And even with private schools, they might have a specific interest in religious affiliated schools. Some other parents also want their kids to have a more intimate learning experience, and they would naturally prefer a place that has smaller class sizes and where children can relate on a nearly personal basis with their teachers. So for some parents, it's about that. And then, of course, private schools also usually would have a wider range of extracurricular activities to nurture a child's particular interest. So some parents would target schools that have specific facilities to cater to their child's unique needs. There are some schools here, some private schools here that are arts-based, so performance arts, or it could be the creative arts. So these are special schools, and some parents obviously would target those schools because their children exhibit talents or interests that align with what the school can support them with. For some other people, it might just be a community thing. Some parents believe that private schools offer a better opportunity for them, the parents, to be in touch with and connect with a like-minded community of parents. And some parents just find that it is easier in a private school setting to foster those connections than in a public school where, you know, the population is bigger. It is also a way for parents to curate a child's social circle. So these are the reasons why parents choose private school over public school. Having said all of this, what is my personal opinion? For me, and let me just say this, even myself and my husband do not agree when it comes to whether the kids should go to private or public. Now, they attend a private school, which is fine. Personally speaking, I don't mind so much where they go, okay? And the reason I hold this position is because I feel like parents can be lazy sometimes, okay? Yes, I understand the whole argument about wanting to put your child in an environment that supports and reinforces the values that you're already teaching your child at home. But what I am saying, and this is something that goes beyond just a child's education, I feel like we parents sometimes are looking for an easy way out. There are crucial conversations that we will continue to have with our children. We should continue to have with our children. These are not things that we just mention to them once or twice and then we're hoping that when they get to school would continue to reinforce these things. My kids attend a private school right now and they share their experiences with me. There are some things they tell me that just gets me thinking, what? And this is supposed to be a Catholic school. This is just to let you know that the teachers in your kids' school will not be teaching your child those morals the way you think they are being taught at school. Religious education is just another subject in class that they get tested on and they get assessed on. Whether a child actually imbibes values is not about what they are taught in class. That is my opinion. And the funny thing is that you would get kids of all kinds of characters, both in private schools and in public schools. Yes, the sheer size of public school classes and size of the population in public schools might make you feel like there is potential for more exposure to problematic behaviors just because there's more people there. And that is completely valid. But what I am saying is that if a child does not have a solid foundation from home, you've not created a safe space for this child to be able to tell you anything or to share their fears with you, where you're talking through their emotions and just helping them to process things. If you don't have that at home and you as a parent are also not modeling, I believe this is the most important thing, because some of us as parents, okay, we've just inherited this talk style parenting where we feel as long as we talk to our children about what is right and what is wrong, then that is enough. Are we modeling the same values that we want our children to have? Because that is the greater teacher when it comes to children. Children will follow your behavior more than they follow your words. And this is where I feel like us parents tend to get lazy. And then we want to blame the school when children are misbehaving. Another thing is that we need to also understand the stages of development of a child, the things that you can anticipate from your child psychologically, emotionally, as they go through those stages of growth. Are you able to prepare yourself for those stages so that you are supporting your child the way that they need to be supported? It's not only about whether they attend public school or private school. I hear one parent somewhere saying, okay, what about peer pressure? What about peer influence? I am not dismissing any of that. I have acknowledged that just the mere structure of public school makes it such that exposure to a more diverse range of behaviors and attitudes that you may not approve of is prone to happen. And also the fact that this exposure might be to an increased level just because there are more children, more people within that environment. Yes, I acknowledge all of that. But also in that private school, the religious private school, apart from your own child or your own children, you can't vouch for any other child in there in relation to what kind of upbringing they are receiving, what kind of parents they have, what influences they are exposed to back at home. You just do not know. Let's not pretend like these things do not happen. Even in church, we have people who are struggling with an alcohol problem or a drug problem. Domestic violence might be going on. You just don't know. I have shared on this channel in one of my previous videos how one of the first experiences of racism that I recall very clearly, targeted towards my children, happened in church. A little boy came up to one of my daughters, snatched a toy from her and said, "I don't share my toy with brown people." That was in church. And it made me wonder what kind of parents this boy had. It made me wonder what kind of home he was coming from. Like what kind of things was he watching at home and being allowed to watch, even if it wasn't something that he had heard directly from parents. Maybe it was something he watched on TV. Everybody's on the internet. Every child, even children born yesterday, know how to navigate their way on the internet. You don't know what the other kids are doing. You don't know what parental controls have been placed around their access to internet and the kind of content that they consume. You just do not know. And just because it's a private school does not mean that it relieves you of your responsibility as a parent to be up and doing and hands-on in how you bring up your own children. Before your child even starts attending school, you are the biggest influence on a child's life. So what are you doing with that influence? These are some realizations that have come to me the hard way. Okay, I learned the hard way, but I feel really strongly about sharing some of these insights, which is why I said this might be the first of a series of videos that go deeper into talking about the well-being of children, especially for migrant parents who have relocated to another country that is different in culture, different in the social makeup from where they have come from. Anyways, let me know in the comment section what your thoughts are, okay, on these debates between public versus private. Why would you prefer a private school over a public school, or why would you prefer a public school over a private school? I know parents personally whose kids attend public schools, and these are the most well-behaved, most well-adjusted kids that I have seen. And vice versa, I have seen other parents whose kids attend a religious school and their behavior is just atrocious. Some parents prefer for their kids to go to a public school because public schools might have a better representation of society than a private school, which is exclusive, and it's just as if kids have been wrapped up in this little bubble and they would think that life is just the way they experience it in a private school. That's what some parents would say to defend their choice of putting their kid in a public school. They'll be like, I would prefer my kid to be there so that they can have a realistic experience of what they would see going through life when they get a job, when they go into relationships, when they travel the world. It's not that little bubble that has been carefully curated in a private school. Anyways, like I said, let me know what your thoughts are, and I'll see you again in my next video. Bye bye.